So here's one of our Jaboticaba trees. Jaboticaba, as you probably already know, is from Brazil, and it is known as a tree grape. The fruit itself looks quite a bit like a muscadine grape, and it has some similarities in taste to that too. The tree is just very ornamental, and of course the fruit attached directly to the branches of the tree, not to the the smaller areas with a lot of fruit are at branch tips. This is like right onto the bark. Interesting fruit. It's one of the things that we've noticed this year is there's been a big difference in the fruit that we've picked. In the beginning of the season, we were getting all of the fruit. We have quite a few trees, but we had this size fruit from like all of our trees. Of course, there's some difference on the tree, on each tree. Like for instance, this is not quite as big as this other one. That was from the same tree. But in general, the fruit in the early season were big, and the fruit that we've been able to pick now is pretty small. Now, of course it still tastes good and it still looks beautiful, but it's a little more work because each one of these fruit has at least one seed in it, and so it's just not quite the experience that the big Jaboticaba fruit are. But one of the really special things about Jaboticaba, not only is it a nice fruit to eat fresh, but I think it just is unbelievably good as a preserve. Years ago, we made some preserves with Jaboticaba, and they were excellent. It was really easy to do. We've got a video that we'll link in the description here, and so even if you've never made preserves, try this out. I was very impressed with how good the preserves were. It was my two favorite preserves of any kind were those that we made from the Jaboticaba, and the other one was from the Pitomba. Both tropical fruits were just so much better than any jam or jelly from any type of fruit I've ever tasted. So that sort of brings me to a story about making Jaboticaba jelly. And we use the whole fruit. It's very simple, and we put some, of course, water and a little bit of sugar and fresh apple for the pectin. You can't use an apple that's been sitting around for months and months. The pectin's in the fresh apple. So we used that, and it was really good. But then I had some Brazilian friends, Daisy and Cicero, and they took a box of the fruit, ate the fruit, not the skin. They saved the skin and then made the jelly out of the skin with, of course, a little bit of sugar and source of pectin. And that was really good too. There's just flavors that come out when you make something with the Jaboticaba that are not really that present when you eat the fruit. It just opens up a whole new dimension to the fruit. But I thought this was a really interesting thing because, most people do not eat the skin of the fruit when they're eating Jaboticaba, and you can get another chapter out of that fruit. You just save the skins and then make jelly. And that jelly was so much darker, purple, just a beautiful color than the one we made with the whole fruit. So that got me thinking about this small fruit, because the skin to fruit ratio is really high, I guess. There's a lot of skin and not much fruit inside. So this fruit, I think I'm going to collect a bunch of the small fruit and then make a preserve out of that. It's, of course, a little bit of work, but it's not complicated, but it's definitely delicious when you do that. But getting back to this situation with the trees and the size of the fruit, you might be wondering, hey, why do you have a bowl of small fruit and a bowl of big fruit? And the answer is that I noticed one of our trees was next to the property line and it had big fruit. So basically it was taking advantage of the neighbor's irrigation. So big fruit, irrigation, small fruit, you're on your own, no irrigation. So of course, the cause of having big fruit in the early season was that we had a lot of rain, not so much rain this time of year, unfortunately. So small fruit. And the lesson that hopefully we've learned is that if it doesn't rain a lot, we need to get the hose out and water the Jaboticaba trees. We have a lot of them around the grove, and some areas are friendlier to fruit than others, and we just have to make every tree happy so it makes these big, gorgeous fruit. So this turns out to be a tale of two Jaboticabas. Of course, we have a lot more trees than two, but we do have these two situations, small fruit, big fruit. So the takeaway from this particular situation with the small fruit and the big fruit is if your trees are not getting much water, either from your irrigation or from rainfall, it's a really good idea to bring out the hose, but it's not the end of the world if you get a bunch of small fruit, because this should make really good preserves.